The morning I walked into the real estate office, the sun was so bright it almost felt like a blessing. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what all those sleepless nights and skipped vacations were for. Every dollar I had saved since college, every extra shift, every denied indulgence was finally about to mean something. My parents had been renting the same creaky old apartment for over a decade. The roof leaked whenever it rained, and the paint on the walls peeled like tired skin. After Mom died when I was 14, the place felt even smaller, like the walls were closing in. When Dad remarried Linda, I wanted to believe things would get better. She was polite, careful, and smiled often enough to make you doubt your instincts. Her son Ethan, 2 years older than me, was charming in that way people are when they've never had to try hard at anything. Still, I wanted a family again. So when the idea of buying a house came up, it didn't matter that the down payment would clean out my savings account. I told Dad, "You've worked your whole life for us. Let me do this." His eyes softened in a way I hadn't seen since I was a kid. We spent weeks visiting open houses, Linda gliding through rooms with that calculating smile of hers, Ethan tagging along, barriers break. But then we found it, Lettuce, Dory home with white shutters and a maple tree in the front yard that swayed like it was welcoming us. The moment I saw the light pouring through the kitchen windows, I knew it was the one. "This feels right," I said, running my hand along the countertop. Dad smiled, "Feels like home." For the first time in years, he looked truly happy. That alone made it worth it. I paid the deposit that afternoon, $68,000, my entire life's savings. My heart raced as I signed the check. I imagined family dinners, birthdays, and laughter echoing through those walls. It wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of everything I'd lost and everything I was finally reclaiming. When we got the keys, Dad hugged me so tightly I thought he'd never let go. "You made this possible, Ava. We'll never forget what you've done." Those words stayed with me like a song I didn't know would later haunt me. We spent the next few weeks moving in. I painted the living room pale blue, Mom's favorite color, and planted flowers by the mailbox. Linda praised the decor, and Ethan joked about hosting parties by the pool. I laughed with them, letting myself believe we were finally a family. One night, as we stood on the porch watching the sunset, I said softly, "This feels like a new beginning." Dad squeezed my shoulder. "It is, sweetheart. You've given us more than you know." I smiled, the warmth of his hand grounding me in that fragile moment of hope. If only I had known that the foundation of our beautiful new home was already cracked, not by time or weather, but by betrayal quietly waiting to bloom. The morning the papers arrived, I was humming to myself in the kitchen, unpacking the last of the boxes. Sunlight poured across the marble counter, and for a moment, everything felt complete. The scent of fresh coffee filled the air. Dad was outside trimming the hedge, and Linda sat at the table, flipping through the documents from the realtor. "Everything's finalized," she said cheerfully, "just some signatures left." I smiled. "Great, I'd love to look them over too." She hesitated just for a second before sliding the papers toward me. I noticed the faint tightening around her mouth, a look so brief most people wouldn't have seen it. But I did. Years of holding my tongue had made me good at reading small betrayals. I scanned the pages. My name wasn't there. The deed listed 3 owners, Robert Moore, Linda Moore, and Ethan Moore. At first, I thought it was a clerical error. "Wait," I said lightly, my voice trembling despite myself. "Where's my name?" Linda didn't look up from her coffee. "Oh, sweetheart, it's just simpler this way. For taxes and, inheritance. It keeps things straightforward." I blinked, the words not sinking in. But I paid for most of it. The down payment came from my account. Dad walked in, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What's wrong?" I turned to him, papers shaking in my hand. "My name isn't on the deed." Why not? He sighed, as if I were being unreasonable. Ava, this house is for all of us. Ethan needs some stability in his life. You have your job, your apartment someday, your future. He's still trying to find his way. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. My throat felt dry, my pulse loud in my ears. So, I whispered, "You're saying he needs it more than I do." Dad avoided my eyes. "You'll always have a place here. We just thought, no." I cut him off. "You decided, without me." Linda's tone turned sugary. "Darling, you're overreacting. We're a family. What's on paper doesn't matter." But it did matter. It mattered because for years, I'd sacrificed everything believing that love and family were enough, that my effort, my care, my loyalty would count for something. And now, all of that was being erased with a few lines of ink. I stared at them, at the man who raised me and the woman who wore my mother's wedding ring, and realized that the dream I'd built wasn't ours. It was theirs, rewritten without me. "I see," I said finally. My voice was calm, too calm. "Thank you for clearing that up." Linda smiled, relieved. "I knew you'd understand." I didn't, but I understood one thing perfectly. My place in their world had never been permanent. That night I packed a small bag. Dad tried to stop me at the door, his voice breaking, but I couldn't stay. Every wall, every corner of that perfect house felt like it was whispering a lie. As I walked away, the porch light flickered behind me. I didn't look back. The home I'd built with love had become the house that broke me. Silence became my closest companion. After leaving the house, I rented a tiny apartment above a bakery downtown. Every morning, the smell of warm bread drifted through my window, a soft reminder that life moved on whether I wanted it to or not. At first, I cried for days, not out of anger, but from the kind of sadness that drains you from the inside. I had done everything right, everything I was supposed to, and still ended up empty-handed. The people I loved most had turned my generosity into their opportunity. Weeks bled into months. Calls from my father came less and less until they stopped altogether. I told myself I didn't need him, that I was better off alone. But sometimes in the quiet of night, I'd replay his words. "Ethan needs stability." As if I never did. As if all my sacrifices were just a convenience. I poured myself into work. I stayed late, learned everything I could about finance, investment, and real estate, the very system that had been used to erase me. My boss noticed, promoting me faster than I expected. I bought my own car, paid off my student loans, and began saving again. But this time, the saving wasn't for anyone else. Years passed. I heard through an old neighbor that things weren't going well for them. Ethan had never kept a job for more than a few months. The house I'd poured my dreams into was slowly falling apart, leaky gutters, dead grass, cracks in the walls. Linda's health had declined, and my father's retirement fund had been drained by medical bills and Ethan's mistakes. When I heard they were on the verge of losing the house, I felt nothing. Not joy, not pity. Just a hollow quiet, like justice waiting for its cue. One rainy afternoon, as I watched water trace down my apartment window, a thought came to me, not cruel, but clear. Maybe this is how it comes full circle. I didn't want revenge that burned. I wanted something colder, cleaner, the kind that restored balance. A few weeks later, I learned the house was officially up for auction. The irony almost made me laugh. The same place I had paid for with every ounce of love and trust I had was now being sold to strangers. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I had resources, connections, knowledge, and I had patience, the kind of patience only betrayal can teach. Through a business associate, I quietly made inquiries. My name wouldn't appear anywhere on the paperwork. I would simply be another interested buyer. That night, as I looked through the old photos on my phone of us painting the walls, of Dad smiling in front of the maple tree, I didn't feel hatred anymore. Only clarity. They had taken what I gave them freely, assuming I would never take it back. But they'd forgotten that even the softest hearts can turn to steel when broken enough times. For years, I thought I'd lost everything the day I left that house. But standing there, staring at the auction listing glowing on my laptop screen, I realized something powerful. This time, the story would end on my terms. The morning of the auction was quiet. Almost eerily so. The sky hung low and gray, like it knew something was about to change. I sat in the back of the courthouse room, anonymous among the bidders, my heart steady but strangely calm. The house, their house, my house, appeared on the screen with its pale shutters and withered maple tree. Opening bid. The auctioneer called. Numbers flew, voices rose, and in under 10 minutes it was done. The winning offer belonged to a small investment firm, one that, on paper, had no connection to me. But I knew the truth. I owned it now, quietly, completely. A week later, I drove to the property. The driveway was cracked, weeds snaking through the gravel. The maple tree I'd once loved stood bare, its branches twisted like reaching hands. I knocked. Ethan answered the door. He looked older, tired, his easy charm worn thin. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone curt but wary. "Yes," I said softly, my eyes meeting his. "I'm here about the house." Before he could respond, Linda appeared behind him, thinner than I remembered, her expression anxious. "The bank sent you, didn't they?" I nodded. "The house has been sold." Ethan scoffed, shaking his head. "Great, another stranger coming to pick apart what's left of our lives." A voice came from behind them, my father's. "Who's there?" When he saw me, he froze. For a long, aching moment, no one spoke. His hair had turned almost white, and his eyes, the same ones that once looked at me with so much pride, were rimmed with regret. "Ava," he said quietly, "you bought it." I nodded. "Through a company. It was cleaner that way." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "We never meant for things to go like this. We were trying to help Ethan get a start, but everything just..." She trailed off, voice breaking. Dad stepped forward. "We made a mistake. I made a mistake." I took a slow breath, feeling the old pain stir, but it didn't burn anymore. It just existed like a scar. "Yes," I said gently, "you did." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "So what now? You gonna throw us out?" I looked around the house, the faded walls, the chipped stairs, the echo of laughter that once meant something. "No," I said finally, "the bank gave you 30 days. I'll honor that. After that, I'll decide what to do." Linda's voice trembled. "You could sell it back to us." I smiled faintly. "You couldn't afford it." Dad's eyes welled. "Ava, we don't deserve your kindness." "You don't," I said, not unkindly. "But I'm not here for revenge. I just wanted to see what became of what I built." For a long moment, none of us moved. Then I handed my father an envelope, a modest check, enough for a small rental nearby. I said, "I won't see you on the street." He took it with shaking hands, whispering, "Thank you." I turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Some things," I said quietly, "find their way home eventually." Outside, the wind rustled through the brittle branches of the maple tree. I stood beneath it, closing my eyes, letting the cool air wash over me. The house behind me wasn't filled with betrayal anymore. It was filled with closure. That night, I sat on the porch steps, the same ones I'd painted years ago. In my palm lay the old brass keychain I'd bought for my parents, the one engraved with the word home. For the first time, I felt the truth of it. Home wasn't something you bought or gave away. It was something you built inside yourself, and no one could ever take that deed from me again.